这个故事如果你听起来不累，那么你的听力水平在生活中是完全够用的。要持续提升英文，记得点击订阅按钮。我们开始吧。
A man once sat on a wooden fence so long that both sides thought he had already chosen against them. In the summer of 1884, in a small town in Ohio, two crowds faced each other across a dusty road. One group wanted a new railroad to cut through their farms. The other group feared the smoke, the noise, and the loss of land. Voices grew sharp. Hats were waved in the air. Boots stamped the ground. At the center of it all stood a thin fence made of rough wood rails. It marked the line between two fields, but that day it felt like a wall between two worlds. On that fence sat a young shopkeeper named Eli Turner. Eli owned the only general store in town. He sold flour, nails, sugar, boots, and sometimes hope. Farmers from both sides bought from him. He gave credit when crops failed. He listened when tempers rose. He knew that if he picked one side, he would lose the other. So when the town meeting ended in shouting, he walked outside, climbed onto the fence, and sat down. "Eli, which side are you on?" someone yelled. He did not answer. He let his boots hang. He looked at the sky as if the clouds might speak for him. The town paper wrote about it the next day. The headline read, "Turner sits on the fence while town fights." The writer meant it as a joke, but the words stuck. People began to use them. When a neighbor would not say who he supported, others would laugh and say, "He is sitting on the fence like Eli." Yet the story of this phrase reaches further back than that Ohio road. Long before Eli, farmers across America built fences not only to keep animals in but also to mark choices. A fence showed where your land ended and your neighbor's began. It showed what was yours and what was not. During hard times, when crops failed or prices fell, men gathered by these fences to argue about banks, trade, and new laws. Some climbed up to speak to both sides. A man on a fence could see both fields at once. He could hear both groups. He could delay a choice. In the early 1800s, newspapers in England used the phrase to describe voters who would not say which party they favored. One paper mocked a man who perched upon the fence of doubt. The image was clear. A fence is narrow. It is not made for comfort. You cannot stay there long without pain. Sooner or later, you must climb down. Back in Ohio, Eli's silence began to cost him more than he expected. One evening, a farmer named Ruth Carter walked into his store. Her face was red from the sun and anger. She placed a sack of beans on the counter. "I hear you will not stand with us," she said. "I stand with the town," Eli replied. "That is not an answer." She left without buying sugar. The bell above the door rang hard as it closed. The next day, a railroad agent in a dark coat came in. He picked up a hammer, weighed it in his hand, then set it down. "We need men of courage," the agent said. "Men who see the future." "I see two futures," Eli answered. "Both with cost." The agent smiled without warmth. "A man who sees two futures may end with none." Word spread that Eli was weak. Boys laughed and called him Fence Man. Sales fell. At night he lay awake, hearing the wind push against the wooden rails outside town. He began to understand something simple and hard. Staying in the middle did not keep him safe. It only delayed the storm. The real storm came in September. A fight broke out near the fence. A rail was torn loose. Someone pushed. Someone fell. Blood mixed with dust. Eli ran from his store and saw Ruth on the ground, her arm bent wrong. The railroad agent stood nearby, shouting that the town would regret this chaos. Eli did not climb the fence this time. He stepped between the groups and raised his voice. "This fence is wood," he said. "It is not a throne. It is not a shield. While we argue, we break each other." Silence fell for a moment. People stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. He helped carry Ruth home. He paid for the doctor from his own pocket. That night, he wrote a letter to the town paper. He did not shout. He did not accuse. He said that he would support the railroad only if the company paid fair price for land and built a safe crossing for children and animals. If they refused, he would stand against them. The paper printed his letter in full. Some people nodded. Some shook their heads. The railroad company, facing pressure, agreed to the terms. The line was built the next year. Smoke did rise over the fields. So did new business. Not every fear came true. Not every promise was kept. Life moved on, as it does. Years later, when Eli was an old man with silver hair, a teacher asked him about that day on the fence. "I thought I was being wise," he said. "I thought balance meant sitting still. But a fence is a place to pass over, not a place to live." By then, the phrase had spread across the country. Politicians used it. Pastors used it. Parents used it when a child would not choose between chores and play. "Stop sitting on the fence," they would say. The words carried a gentle warning. Delay can look like peace, but it often hides fear. The phrase grew because people saw themselves in it. Everyone has a fence at some point. A job offer in one hand and comfort in the other. A friend asking for truth while silence feels safer. A chance to speak up when a joke cuts too deep. The fence appears small, almost harmless. It offers a view of both sides. It whispers that there is still time. But wood splinters. Balance slips. The old fence in Ohio did not last. Storms took it down. Grass covered the line between the fields. Children ran where men once shouted. The story, though, remained. It traveled through papers and books and everyday talk. When someone says you are on the fence, they are not talking about wood or nails. They are talking about that thin space between choice and action. They are asking how long you plan to sit there. Eli's life was not perfect after he chose. Some customers never returned. Some blamed him when trains scared their cows. Yet he slept better. He knew where he stood. The fence became something he stepped over each morning on his way to town, a reminder of the cost of waiting too long. You may not face a railroad cutting through your field. Your fence may look different. It might be a message you have not sent. A dream you have not chased. A wrong you have not named. Sitting there can feel safe. Both sides still smile at you. No door is closed. But fences are narrow for a reason. They were built to mark land, not to hold lives. At some point, the question comes clear and sharp. Are you watching from the top rail, or are you willing to climb down and stand somewhere real? The phrase has lasted because it carries that question inside it. Not as a threat, not as a shout, but as a quiet push. The wood beneath you will not grow wider. The ground on either side waits.
能以非母语者的身份专注学习到现在，这本身就是很棒的进步。真诚感谢你的观看。如果你觉得本期内容实用，点赞或留言让我知道你的想法，这对我持续创作非常重要。我们下期见。